The philosophy and beauty of Karasansui Gardens. Imagine standing before a vast ocean, waves eternally rolling against distant shores. Now picture that same endless expanse captured in a single moment. But instead of water, you see rippling patterns in sand, carefully raked around ancient stones. This is no ordinary garden. This is Karasansui, where entire universes are contained within the confines of earthly spaces. In 15th century Kyoto, a Zen Buddhist monk named Muso Soseki stood at the edge of such a garden. With nothing more than rocks, gravel, and an unwavering vision, he was about to revolutionize the way humans captured the essence of nature. But to understand why this simple arrangement of stones and sand would become one of Japan's most profound artistic expressions, we need to dive deep into the mind of Zen itself. What you're looking at in a Japanese rock garden isn't just aesthetic minimalism. It's a gateway into understanding the universe. Each carefully positioned stone has been chosen not just for its shape, but for its ability to evoke mountains that aren't there, waterfalls that never flow, and islands that exist only in the mind's eye. This is the art of suggesting everything by showing almost nothing. Take Ryoan-ji, perhaps the most famous rock garden in the world. 15 stones sit in a sea of meticulously raked white gravel. But here's the mystery that has captivated visitors for centuries. No matter where you stand, you can only see 14 stones at once. The 15th always remains hidden, as if playing an eternal game of hide and seek with your perception. This isn't an accident. It's a profound statement about the nature of enlightenment itself. The Japanese concept of ma, the space between things, is crucial here. In Western art, empty space is often seen as a void to be filled. But in Karasansui, emptiness is as important as presence. That raked gravel representing water isn't empty at all. It's pregnant with possibility, teeming with invisible meaning. It's a radical idea that challenges everything we think we know about design and beauty. But these gardens weren't created purely for aesthetic contemplation. They were tools for meditation, physical manifestations of Zen koans, those paradoxical riddles meant to short-circuit logical thinking and lead to sudden enlightenment. When a monk rakes the gravel each morning, they're not just maintaining the garden, they're participating in a ritual as old as Zen itself, where the act of creation is simultaneously an act of meditation. Consider the story of Sen no Rikyu, the tea master who once served his lord in a garden full of morning glories. When the lord arrived, eager to see the famous flowers, he found them all cut down. Entering the tea room, he found a single perfect bloom arranged in a vase. This is the essence of Karasansui, the art of elimination, of finding the extraordinary in absolute simplicity. The stones themselves are chosen with philosophical precision. In traditional Karasansui, rocks are typically arranged in triads, reflecting the Buddhist concept of the Trinity, the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. But look closer, and you'll see that these arrangements also mirror natural formations found in Japan's dramatic landscapes. A cluster of vertical stones might represent Mount Horai, the mythical home of the 8 immortals. A flat stone surrounded by raked patterns could be a turtle swimming through eternal waves, symbolizing longevity and wisdom. What's particularly fascinating is how these gardens play with scale. A few carefully placed rocks might represent vast mountain ranges, while a small patch of moss becomes an entire forest. This manipulation of perspective isn't just artistic sleight of hand. It's a profound statement about the nature of reality itself. In Zen philosophy, the entire universe can be found in a single grain of sand. These gardens make that concept tangible. The patterns raked into the gravel are called sama, and they're far more than simple decorative elements. The act of raking these patterns is a meditative practice in itself, requiring intense concentration and a steady hand. The most common pattern, parallel lines, represents water, but not just any water. It's the water of the mind, the flowing thoughts that we must learn to direct and control through meditation. These gardens hold secrets that only reveal themselves through time and patience. As the sun moves across the sky, the shadows cast by each stone shift and transform, creating what amounts to a natural sundial. But more than telling time, these changing shadows reveal the Japanese concept of utsuroi, the beauty of impermanence. In medieval Japan, these gardens served another crucial purpose. They were tools for meditation in times when travel was restricted. Zen monks couldn't always make pilgrimages to Japan's sacred mountains or legendary waterfalls, so they created miniature versions in their temple grounds. Think of it as virtual reality, centuries before computers. Each carefully placed stone could represent a specific mountain or holy site, allowing monks to make spiritual journeys without leaving their monastery. The genius of Karasansui reaches its peak in places like Daitoku-ji's Daisen-in Garden. Here, the arrangement tells a complete story. A powerful waterfall crashes down from mountains, represented by tall vertical stones, flowing into a turbulent river of raked gravel. As the river progresses through the garden, it gradually calms, eventually flowing into what appears to be an endless ocean. It's not just a garden. It's a metaphor for life itself, from the turbulent energy of youth to the calm wisdom of maturity. But these gardens aren't frozen in the past. Contemporary architects and designers worldwide have been profoundly influenced by their principles. When Steve Jobs insisted on absolute simplicity in Apple's designs, he was channeling the same philosophical approach that guided the creators of Karasansui. The modern minimalist movement owes an enormous debt to these ancient Japanese gardens. Consider the revolutionary work of Isamu Noguchi, a Japanese-American artist who bridged Eastern and Western aesthetic traditions. His sculptures and garden designs took the principles of Karasansui and reimagined them for the 20th century. The UNESCO garden in Paris, with its sculptural stones and clean lines, shows how these ancient principles can speak to modern sensibilities. One of the most fascinating aspects of these gardens is their use of borrowed scenery, or shake. Imagine looking at a carefully arranged group of rocks, only to realize that they're positioned to frame a distant mountain peak perfectly. This technique makes the garden seem infinitely larger than it is, dissolving the boundary between the created and natural world. The gravel itself tells a story. In many gardens, it's not just ordinary sand or gravel, but crushed granite, chosen for its specific color and texture. When it rains, these tiny particles darken, creating subtle variations in tone that add another layer of complexity to the garden's expression. Even the sound of footsteps on this gravel is considered part of the garden experience, a reminder to move mindfully and remain present in the moment. There's a famous story about a wealthy merchant who hired a renowned garden master to create a Karasansui garden for his home. After months of waiting, the merchant became impatient and demanded to see the garden. The master replied, "I'm still choosing the stones." This wasn't procrastination. It was recognition that each stone must have what the Japanese call shibui, a kind of sophisticated simplicity that reveals its beauty slowly over time. The influence of these gardens extends far beyond aesthetics. In the business world, companies like Google and Facebook have created contemplative spaces inspired by Karasansui principles, recognizing their power to reduce stress and enhance creativity. Silicon Valley executives regularly visit Japanese gardens to find inspiration for design thinking and problem solving. Modern neuroscience is beginning to understand what Zen monks have known for centuries. These gardens can actually change our brains. The patterns of raked gravel have been shown to induce alpha brain waves associated with relaxation and meditation. The seemingly simple act of contemplating these gardens can lower blood pressure and reduce stress hormones. But perhaps the most remarkable aspect of Karasansui gardens is their ability to adapt to personal interpretation. Like a Rorschach test written in stone and sand, each viewer finds their own meaning in the careful arrangements. What one person sees as a waterfall, another might interpret as a mountain range. Both are correct, and that's exactly the point. The legendary garden master Shigemori Mirei once said, "A garden is not really a garden until it has aged for 100 years. This patience-demanding philosophy stands in stark contrast to our modern desire for instant gratification. Yet it holds a profound truth. True beauty emerges through time, weathering, and the subtle accumulation of moss and lichen on carefully placed stones. Take the famous garden at Ginkakuji, the Silver Pavilion in Kyoto. Here you'll find the moon viewing platform, a perfectly formed cone of sand that stands about 6 feet tall. Next to it, A flat expanse of sand is raked in precise patterns meant to represent the surface of a lake. During the full moon, this sand catches the moonlight and reflects it, creating an ethereal experience that connects earth and sky, human and cosmos. The maintenance of these gardens is an art form in itself. Every morning, monks or skilled gardeners rake the gravel in precise patterns. But before they can even touch a rake, they must train for years to develop the right mindset and technique. It's said that a true garden master can rake patterns so precise that they appear to flow like water, yet so natural that they seem to have formed themselves. What's particularly fascinating is how these gardens have influenced contemporary mindfulness practices. Tech companies in Silicon Valley aren't just copying the aesthetic, they're incorporating the underlying principles into their workplace design. Studies have shown that employees who spend even 15 minutes in contemplative spaces inspired by Karasansui show improved focus and creativity. But you don't need an elaborate garden to apply these principles. The essence of Karasansui can be distilled into everyday life. It's about finding beauty in simplicity, understanding the power of negative space, and recognizing that what's left out is often as important as what's included. These are principles that can transform not just our spaces, but our way of thinking. The future of these gardens is as intriguing as their past. Contemporary artists are creating digital Karasansui that respond to viewers' movements, while environmental scientists are studying how these gardens' efficient use of space and resources might help us design more sustainable urban environments. Some architects are even proposing Karasansui principles for Mars colonies, recognizing that these gardens' ability to create contemplative space with minimal resources could be crucial for long-term space habitation. Yet for all our modern interpretations and applications, the core mystery of these gardens remains unchanged. Why do certain arrangements of stone and sand have such a profound effect on the human psyche? Perhaps the answer lies in their fundamental honesty. They don't try to recreate nature, but rather to capture its essence. In doing so, they remind us that the universe isn't something distant and separate from us, but something we can hold in the palm of our hand or capture in a garden. As our world becomes increasingly complex and digitally mediated, these gardens offer something rare, a space for unmediated contemplation, where the only screen is the one created by raked sand, and the only notification is the changing angle of shadows across stone. They remind us that sometimes the most profound experiences come not from adding more, but from taking away until only the essential remains. Thank you for joining us on this journey through the philosophy and beauty of Karasansui Gardens. If you've enjoyed exploring these timeless spaces with us, please consider subscribing to our channel for more deep dives into Japanese culture and history. Don't forget to hit the like button and share this video with anyone who might appreciate the profound simplicity of these extraordinary gardens. Until next time, remember, in the space between stones, entire universes await discovery.